in-app events to grow your app, findings and best practices. And I hope the beautiful and wonderful Laura is with us here today.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can indeed. Yeah, listen, Laura, great to have you with us today. We're very excited about your presentation, and I'm going to pass the floor to you.
Thank you, David. Okay, so let's talk about in-app events, but first of all, just a few words about myself. So I work in actually with App Store optimization almost 6 years. So yeah, have a kind of proven record in terms of how it works. Right now, I'm working at like Product Madness, and I'm lead amazing App Store optimization team. Also, we build a huge synergy with like Apple Search Ads as well to work, you know, to get some additional benefits from it. But before I joined this company, I worked with application within health and fitness category. So before we delve deeper into some specific information regarding some market insights or from creative side of things or some kind of pages types, which might possibly generate more impressions towards your application, let's just, you know, cover some basics, especially for those who just, you know, haven't tried in-app events yet and still just, you know, not so sure whether it's, you know, worth it or not. So in-app events, they became actually live this year. And in terms of, you know, this particular functionality, so this is a very great opportunity to highlight some specific features of your app, or for example, some certain events which only live for a short time frame, right? Because, you know, you don't need to submit a new version of your application to create and publish your in-app event. This is a huge, huge plus. Also, you can rotate 5 in-app events, which could be live on your product page, and up to 10 in-app events also could be actually stay in the queue, right, before they become, you know, available for your audience. As for particular duration of your in-app events, 5 minutes, you know, this is kind of minimum, and the max, this actually entire month, which is also amazing, right? Also, in-app events, you know, bring some additional, I would say, flexibility to control the performance, because you can actually change your end date after when you publish the in-app event. If you see that you still have capacity kind of extra days, you can just, you know, make it longer, of course, if it's just available on, you know, on your game site. But at the same time, if you see there is something goes wrong, you can stop this in-app event to analyze, you know, build some kind of conclusions, and then move on with, you know, the next iteration. Also, amazing metrics actually available on App Store Connect site. You can see impressions, you can see actually kind of interaction level with your in-app event, like opens, downloads, some notifications, items, and also event details page view as well. So yeah, looks very appealing, very interesting, but where we might to start how to work with this from creative side of things and many other, you know, some kind of pages, which pages we should choose. So before we're going to talk about some statistics, I have a question to the audience. So in terms of some specific categories, let's consider gaming and let's consider application. Just please type, just share your ideas in terms of percentage. How many of those apps who use in-app events per each category? Which top categories you might think use frequently in-app events? And if you might also guess the percentage, also would be great. And then I will reveal the information regarding it. Here we have adventure, we have shopping. Yeah, you can choose, for example, from gaming. So like, you know, so many different categories, and you can, you know, also put the percentage as well. Casual, I see, finance, casino, e-commerce, card games, great. Okay, let's move on. Let's just reveal the truth, who just literally on top of this list. Okay, yep. Yeah, so as you may see on the right side, actually this strategy also, okay, role playing and simulation, this is kind of categories we just on top of this list, and literally every 5th app from strategy in this particular category use an app event right now in November. So this is kind of the most recent data. As for application, you may also see that on top of the list, this is actually graphics and design, followed by education and health and fitness with 9%. Also, you may notice some additional information from gaming, just, for your further usage if you're interested in. As for some insights, when we started actually, using in-app events, we were only kind of like in this top 5 of, casino apps which use in-app events. But then, like after a while, like after 6 months, this percentage increased and it's, became like a 9%. But right now, when I checked recently, so in casino, it's 11%. So it means that more and more applications start using this functionality if you're still waiting for something. So this is the right moment for you to start doing and investigate this amazing functionality. Okay, so we covered some insights, we covered some basics, but what about the actual concepts which we might see, right? What kind of concepts would be most, I would say, relevant for my application or, my game? So we actually, check many, in-app events which were live, and we find and kind of group them in specific concepts. So I think this information also might be interesting for you and might be useful to follow one of these concepts, or maybe even create your own approach, who knows? So yeah, kind of, the most, I would say, the simplistic one, but this is just only for one point of view, from production point of view, when you just have a really great and high quality assets from the product team, our team, right? So you can create an app event, just use the same image for your cart and for your detail page, but you also could slightly change the focus for, I would say, for your portrait version or for your landscape. So yeah, as if it's 11 crazy, but high quality creative actually is a must. So as for other concepts, you can also might notice some kind of different placement, right? So it's a bit more easy, I would say, to create. For example, if you don't have like mind-blowing graphics, right? Some artworks, you still can choose and pick some items. And also you can just place them in a different way. So usually, card and the detail card, they have, some similarities for sure, just, based on idea which you present and some specific in-app event, but the placement of different objects could be different also, just, to highlight, some specific items and target. So the next concept, which looks very appealing, quite interesting, but quite rarely used, actually, 2 cards and 2 styles. So yes, you might highlight some specific functionality, some interesting ideas, but your approach could be different for these 2 cards, and looks quite interesting. And yes, so we found, several examples within the application and also for gaming, which is, with the highest percentage of usage of in-app events. Yes, quite catchy, quite unusual, could work pretty well for your conversion and also to re-engage your existing audience, right? But also require time for preparation. And sometimes if your in-app event is pretty short, sometimes it's not worth it to put so much effort. So before you just, create something and like spend, so many hours just to come up with idea, and I mean, just to illustrate something, test something a bit more like, quite simple, then like based on this kind of conclusion, you can move forward and expand, just what you're going to do with different in-app events. So, and of course, the last but not least, this actual kind of use video for your in-app events could work really, really well. But also a bit time consuming and a bit tricky for submission process, to be honest, because, for example, if you may see, you can use a combo statics with video, kind of looks like more like a video preview, this completely fine, or you can use both video for both of your cards. You can also use kind of like a looping video effect, right? So which looks a bit different, but from search results, very catchy. If you have a specific focus, for example, in your game, kind of a character character and probably the logo, but you add something which actually attracts your attention, which is also could potentially work very well. But be careful, sometimes this type of an app events could be rejected. In this case, if your app event, for example, rejected, you can just turn it into statics or, try again to, I would say, put more information about kind of your actual gameplay, right? But still, you have to make certain change. But with the piece of luck, it might be published and could work really, really well. So yes, so we covered some certain concepts which you can follow or create your, particular your new approach. But what about the brand identity? So when we see in search results, so many amazing catchy app events, sometimes they look completely different than the actual set of, the screenshots which we use, because it's kind of, more opportunity to make things a bit more beautiful than this, in your gameplay probably, right? So try to also think about, this kind of consistency across your creatives and try to build this kind of bridge between you and your user. Just create this kind of bond between your brand and your user actually. And just in the long run, it will also work for you and for your in-app events and for your organics as well. Also, the second advantage of it, when you're just, for example, tested lots of in-app events and you have, for example, some seasonality stuff, right? Or some kind of season or some features or something quite repetitive side of things. So consider how can you just optimize the actual workflow. This is also very important, right? Because this is quite time consuming. You have some other job to do, of course, with keywords, with conversion rate improvements, with probably localization options and so on. So it might be a bit overwhelming. But in this case, if you see some certain patterns, try to find this kind of silver bullet, right? So you have new games, try to create some kind of which could remind of your brand, and people could, I see this in app event, looks very nice, so I know which brand it is, right? So this is something which could definitely work for you. Also, you can use some particular shapes and colors which could remind of your brand, right? For example, for applications. So as for specific logos, I know that Apple kind of, doesn't recommend to use this, text on your creatives assets, right? But still, if your logo could look very nice, catchy and with, kind of high quality, so it's still worth it to try it. Believe it could definitely work. Also, don't forget that, we actually absorb information and when we see the card, so we rarely use, the text just to get additional information, right? First impression matters. So in this case, if it's something new, you still could add something I don't know, kind of text and stickers that it's something new, something ungraded, something just be also quite, wise in terms of how you just do it and play it on your creative, but it could also work and might increase also your kind of conversion and response from the audience. Okay, so apart from creative side of things, I also like to share some insights in terms of some particular pages and the audience types and how to actually, get more impressions towards your application, through in-app events. So we actually noticed that in-app events work pretty well, not only, I would say, acquire new type of users, but unfortunately, it was kind of the smallest percentage. But, the major installs, they actually came from our existing audience and also the kind of lapsed and returning users as well. So that's why in this case, in app events, this could be a very strong tool for your engagement kind of purposes, right? As for particular badges, like out of the 7 available badges, so we tested them all and we noticed that like Premier badge and the Challenge badge work pretty well, and they were kind of major drivers in terms of impression. But when we also started localizing, I would say, our in-app events, changing the names for, kind of additional countries, so we noticed that our visibility of our app, this particular in-app event, increase for these countries which have been chosen, right, and localized. So don't neglect localization. So please use it, and you will see definitely, better kind of outcome out of all these in-app events which you launched. Okay, so just one case, I'd like to share how we just, work with like in-app events, synergy with like Apple Search Ads as well, how it's helped us actually to draw I wouldn't say like tons of installs, but many installs towards our application, how it's helped also just to increase significantly popularity of this keyword, and like, some additional insights I would provide later. But let me just check some questions. In terms of discounts, kind of specific discounts, you should be very careful, right? Because the question is, if we want to do an app event to promote special discounts during X days, do you think that Apple would approve it? Might not, so it's just, very tricky. So you're not allowed to put something that it's sales and so on, but you can wrap it something like as a kind of, bonuses, special things, like celebrate together, just, as a something that you prepare something special, because usually when it's something special, you might consider some, additional discounts, but do not put on your creative assets, because it might be a bit, not very good thing to do, right? But still, as I said, for example, also you have some like short-term app events, right? And you're not sure like whether it's necessary to put all of them just in a row, right? Or maybe you can just do something else. Try to combine it. Try just, I believe that this kind of specific discounts probably due to seasonality, due to upcoming Christmas or Thanksgiving or like Black Friday. So you still could just create something a bit more like, like a teaser, right? So just, convince people to open the app, find out what's happening, and get some kind of additional, whatever, rewards or some discounts as well. So try to, think about from like creative point of view, but be careful. Don't use something like discounts, percentage, sales, and so on, because it might not work and might not be approved from Apple's side. Okay, so just let's just check like one particular case which I already mentioned. So first of all, this was like very successful app event for us, and I think this is due to kind of several reasons. The first, creative side of things, as I said, it was kind of a looping video which like attracts attention a lot from search results. Also, we know that, unfortunately not right now, but in app events, like your title appeared actually in search, this kind of suggestions, right, from Apple search, Apple in search, right? So in this case, when we actually, from the day one, we started campaign for our Apple search ads as well, to cover this particular, I would say, suggestion if people choose it, because if you may see, the title actually includes some generic keywords. And when you type something like slots, new slots, this actually appeared in suggested list. And when person typed this suggest, for example, this person's supposed to see our application, but unfortunately still, it's a bit more glitchy, and sometimes people might not see your application in search results. In this case, we tried to cover it with Apple Search Ads to, continue gain some additional installs, right? So this was kind of our, I would say, kind of tactic. Also, it was a very strong IP, the game title itself, which draws, the post-install metrics was very, very nice. And as for additional kind of support, we also localized this in-app event, and this in-app event bring additional installs, additional kind of interaction from those countries which we localized for. As for some additional statistics, on the right side, you could also see that half of the audience actually were people who have the application on the device. So they just open. So we just engage with them, right? So we just like, deliver some additional information and increase kind of interest on the end, right? So read downloads, like 37%, read downloads, people who deleted the app or like, so yeah, due to several reasons probably, right? But they saw our app event and they were re-engaged with this particular activity. And 12%, which was also quite nice, for the first time installs. And popularity score, you may see that for this particular keyword of an app event was 53, which was, kind of high volume keyword, if we're talking about like some kind of generic keywords, for example. In terms of challenges, as I said, pretty tricky in terms of the submission of the video, localization as well. We noticed that some titles, they kind of become visible in United States instead of the actual United States title, no longer in an app search suggestions, unfortunately, but still it's worth it to try it because probably for seasonality, still your app event might appear in search results, right? So also, as I said, like application might not be visible in search for, by your in-app event title. So you should double check and be quite patient. And total amount of impressions, it doesn't mean that if you put so many in-app events, it will bring you, more impressions. Be quite careful, be quite picky, and choose wise, because some in-app events could definitely drive many impressions. But if you start, kind of launch another in-app event, it could literally eat out other impressions from your previous in-app event, right? So be careful what you choose. Try to optimize your workflow and and continue testing. So yeah, I think we've done, right?
We are indeed, Laura.
Yep.
100%. Yes, we are indeed. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
True.
Laura, thank you very, very much. Really appreciate some great insights. And I can see the email address there. There's lots of questions in the chat. So I would say, guys, reach out to Laura by our email, reach out to her on LinkedIn. If you want any more information, I'm sure she's more than happy to provide context. Again, Laura, we are very, very grateful for your time here today. Thank you very, very much. Have a beautiful day.
My pleasure.